Hi guys, it's Kelly Latevola here, and in the summer issue of Scrapbook and Cards today, I did a watercolor card, and I just wanted to show you kind of what that technique looked like here. So it's emboss resist, but it is with a twist because we're also doing some watercolor bleaching. So I'm working on Canson watercolor paper. This is the Monteval Aquarelle, I think it's 110 pound. And I'm just treating that with an anti-static tool, and then I'm going to go ahead and ink up my stamp. This is from the Sympathy Lilies by W+9, and I'm going to stamp that down. So I'm working in a MISTI. Any sort of stamp positioner will give you the opportunity to stamp twice, which I really like, and it like ensures you get a good impression. The second time I stamped it, I actually got up out of my chair and made sure I applied really good pressure. You can absolutely do this with an acrylic block and still get wonderful results. You don't need the stamp positioner. It just makes it that much easier. So I'm using white Simon Says Stamp embossing powder, and I'm just going to sprinkle that all over the entire bouquet. And then I'm going to use my heat gun to set that until it's all melted and smoothed out. I really love this technique because it adds a bit of pop, but in a kind of a different way. So a resist anytime is beautiful, and my favorite way to do that is with white embossing powder, but you can use it with any embossing powder. So I picked out a couple of Distress Oxides, and I'm going to put this down in the areas that I want it. So basically I'm looking to kind of make a pink flower, a orange flower, and a yellow one, but I also kind of want them to mix together. And since I can't start my ink blending off of the paper, I want that background to be the peacock feathers. I am tapping it off a couple of times on my craft mat. I'm working on a Ranger craft mat here. So I'm just tapping that off so I don't end up with these crazy, perfect circles in my ink blending. And like I said, I wanted the colors to mix, so I'm kind of spreading them around just a little bit to mix it up. I will caution you, I'm using Carved Pumpkin, and it is a little bit of a stronger color, so just be aware you really want to tap that one off. So once that, I had the colors, how I liked them, and I do frequently like to go back in with the first color that I used because often it gets covered up. And I really love the pink. I love picked raspberry. I'm a big fan of it. I'm also a big fan of the coral color it makes when it mixes with an orange. So then once that was done, I'm doing the background in, like I said, the peacock feathers, and I'm letting that mix as well. So just, blending them on, letting them kind of do their thing. Where it mixes with the picked raspberry, it's a little bit purple. Where it mixes with the yellow, it's a little bit neon green. All the colors are super pretty, and so I don't mind any of them. Once I had that done, and you can really see that resist there, I'm actually going to sprinkle on this is just clean water. I'm using a number 2 round brush from the Silver Brush Company, and I'm just spattering on some clean water because it kind of breaks up that background and makes it a lot more interesting. So I'm going to let that sit for a minute, and then I'm just going to blot it up. I would recommend using a paper towel, but I was pretty lazy and all I had was a tissue sitting on my desk, so that's what I used. But you can see how well that color picks up. We're going to actually use that to our advantage. And this is where that bleaching technique comes in. So here I am wetting the areas that are inside the image. So the leaves, the flowers, those things. And then I'm using that tissue to pick up the pigment. This is going to make the background more pigmented than the actual image. And I know you may be thinking, like, Kelly, I really want my image to show up, and I don't want my background to be the focal point. And I do too, so I totally understand that, but just hang tight. We are going to get there. So I'm just going to go through everything. This is actually really fast. You're just going to cover that whole area. If you miss a little nook or cranny, it's okay. Just go back in there with some more water and then pick it up again. It does leave behind some color. You can see it's not completely white. There is, still some pink or yellow or green or what have you, whatever color you put there. But ultimately it does pick up quite a bit of it, enough to definitely set apart the image. So after that's done, I'm going to do, I really love Perfect Pearls. I think they're super pretty. And so I'm going to do some spatters of that in the background just to have some shine. The way Perfect Pearls work is they fix with water. So I'm going to mix these up with a couple of little droplets of water, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to spatter it on haphazardly. It lands where it lands, and just adds a really pretty shimmer. I'm going to let that just dry on there. And then we're going to go in and we're going to do some shading with our Copic markers. This will also work with pencils or any other alcohol markers you have. You could probably even use water-based markers. You would just need to be aware of, those hard lines that you can get. And I'm going to use gray markers to add some shading to the inside of my flowers. So I'm starting with a C3. And I'm just going out from the center. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just going out from the center, and then I'm going over the C1. This will color your embossing powder. Okay, I'm gonna let you know. I'm not worried about it because I'm using a C3 and a C1, which are super light. But if you color over the embossing powder that you have down there, it will tint it. And it's the same thing when we get a little further in the card. You'll see that the colors that I use actually do tint it. But it's okay. There's a way to fix it. There's a way to fix everything. If you've ever watched my personal YouTube channels, you know that I definitely know there's a way to fix everything because I frequently make mistakes. So again, I'm just C3 and then out to the C1. It may look a little crazy right now, but it's because we haven't had any other brighter color. So just wait it out with me. I know I keep saying that, but ultimately at the end, it really will look very pretty. So in order to kind of make these pop and stand out from the background, I picked Copic markers that match the background that I have. Now yours might not be the same as mine. Even if we use the same Distress Oxide colors, yours might not be the same as mine because they mix differently depending upon how much or how little you put down. So just look at your background and find colors that are going to match what you have going on. So I'm doing what they call a drop shadow. So as if my light source was in the top right hand corner, I'm adding all of my shadows to the bottom left, and just using those pinks, oranges, yellows, and greens. Even though I used a blue-green for the actual background of the card, the one that matched the best was a GO2 for me. So don't pigeonhole yourself into thinking that you have to use a color that is the same thing as, like if you used a blue-green, then you have to find one in the blue-green family. Don't think that. Like, just use whichever one's going to work best for your background. So as you can see, as I'm adding this, it's really forcing the image forward and is making it our focal point. So I also did get some of those colors. You can see especially where the leaves are because they are so... I guess compact. The leaves are so compact. It's really easy to get some of that alcohol ink onto the embossing. In order to clean that up, I just use regular over-the-counter alcohol and a Q-tip. So it's not going to hurt your background any, like it's not going to affect your Distress Oxides. And I just very, you want there to be alcohol on it, but you don't want it to be like dripping. It should be just damp. And then just rub that over the areas where you're trying to pick up the color. And for the most part, I've never had any issues with it. Sometimes with like brighter colors, like in red, that might give you some trouble, but that's about it. So that is the whole technique. If you haven't yet, I hope that you pick up your copy of the summer issue, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.